During the Middle Ages, prayer books were a popular part of French culture. Many nobles commissioned their own personal books of hours. The Duc de Berry also added prayers to his that had a personal meaning. Two of his books included a prayer for safe travels. Perhaps the Limbourg brothers and the Duke, based on their difficult travel histories, wanted this beneficial prayer included. The importance and increasing popularity of books of hours during the 14th century show the personal connection owners had to the words and prayers. The Latin words on the pages of the books of hours were not just beautiful and elegant, but carried a comforting message from prayers for the poor and less fortunate to a light that illuminates the world. Gold leaf was an important part of many books of hours in the Middle Ages, and the Lymborchs used gold leaf extensively in their artwork. The deep pockets of their patron, Duc de Berry, allowed them to fill the pages with dazzling gold leaf.
This is loose gold, and this is a gilder's cushion, which is made of suede. The reason is that you need something to adhere this to is that gold leaf itself is thinner than a human hair. Gold leaf was done by taking gold squares, actual gold bars, very thin, and it was put between sheets of something like this, but something it wouldn't stick to, and it was beaten by hand. And so somebody would come and start beating that layer of gold until eventually you get one thing of gold into about 50 to 100 thin layers of gold. This is still 24 karat gold, but it's so thin and so fine, so that itself was a very intensive process. And I want you to see how thin this is. So if I'm even breathing on it, it's gone.
It's thought that the Limbourg brothers used sacred geometry in their artwork. The composition lines found in the Garden of Eden illumination draws the viewer's eyes to a geometric layout within the circle. Painter and calligrapher Randy Hassan explains the use of composition lines in his painting and how the brothers used geometry in their artwork.
Even the shadow on this tree has an angle to where it points to the front door. This is one of the pages from Riches Heures. This is the Garden of Eden, the fall, that the Limbourg brothers did. And this is a really great example of the precision that they used in constructing the pictures. And so one of the things that someone may or may not know is how a painter or how an illustrator constructs the image with composition lines. And then the formulas that they use. So there's a circle, there's very specific lines, there's an arc, and then there's a double pentagram, one of them upside down and one of them right side up in this construction. And so they didn't just create some diagram or some artwork on a page. They really thought about sacred geometry when they were dealing with putting these pages together.
The Limbourg brothers, now in their late 20s and early 30s, had lived through many stressful periods. Kidnapping, wars, and dealing with reoccurrence of the pandemic of their time, the bubonic plague, which is also known as the Black Death. The first outbreak in Europe occurred in Messina, Italy in 1347. Coastal cities on the Mediterranean were the first areas affected, before spreading inland to rural areas. It is estimated that over half the population died. Then, approximately every decade, a plague reoccurrence would hit Europe and continue to cause massive depopulation across the continent. These reoccurrences went on until the 18th century. This threat to life affected most Europeans. The mortality rate was between 15 to 20% of the population during plague reoccurrences. This caused a huge shortage in laborers and farmers. This is the backdrop to the Limbourg brothers' lives, both working in France and growing up in Nijmegen. Every so often, the Black Death would return.
When we look at our pandemic, the corona pandemic, and you compare it to the plague, the Black Death in the 14th and the 15th century, that was a real big problem when more than a third of the French population of Europe died.
The horror of living during the plague can be seen in a page from The Beautiful Hours. The Limbourg's illumination shows people dealing with the Black Death all around them. The impact on the population was enormous. It drove wages higher. It may in part have caused the popularity of books of hours. Perhaps during this time, people sought comfort in prayer books.
With the reality of the day when death was on your doorstep, quite literally, having that prayer book gave them the hope and the connection to God, something besides themselves, outside of themselves, that enabled them to live their lives more fully because they had that book that gave them reassurance of their relationship with their God.
Having a wealthy patron such as Duke de Berry allowed the brothers to use only the finest materials in their artistic creation. This pursuit of excellence was instrumental in creating these beautiful books. During breaks between their illumination projects, the Duke employed them to decorate his chateaus. In 1413, the brothers were working on a chateau remodel for the Duke. He then requested the brothers to start work on another book of hours. This book would be smaller than the Grand Hours, but artistically more ambitious. They designed a book with larger paintings and more colorful scenes. The calendars to this day are highly regarded. This book, Les Riches Heures de Duc de Berry, was the most ambitious book yet, and standing in the way was a recurrence of the plague. Perhaps the plague was the X factor that motivated them to work faster and with more creativity. What is known is that all three brothers and the Duc de Berry all passed away in 1416, leaving the book unfinished. Johann passed away in March, the Duke in June, and Herman and Paul a few months later. It's not known how much more of the book was completed after Johann's passing, but the grief and shock may have pushed the brothers to continue working and develop a plan for the future. What we do know is that they left a roadmap to complete the book. The guide marks and the sketches they put together allowed artists to complete the work they began. However, it took nearly 100 years. The book was finally bound in 1524.
They worked for months on one picture like this, and the real size of a picture like this, well, it's pictures in books, it's very small. This is the real size, it's an H4 size. So when you blow it up like this, you still see all those details. It's incredible how they made it.
The richness of the pigments that they were using were so much more vibrant. The artistry of it, I mean, the actual drawing, the figures, all of the detail was so much more realistic than anything that was done prior to that. And also just their volume of work that they managed to turn out. If I had done 2 of those pages, I'd say, my life is done, you know, and they just kept producing. They were amazing.
I think the interesting part, when I look at this and I think of these individuals who were young, maybe it helps to be young for eyesight, perhaps. I mean, I know it would help me to be young for eyesight, but this is really masterful work, and these guys were so young. And in looking at these calendar pages, there on each one of these arcs where they have the days of the month, and they have all of this as lapis, and they're painting images all in lapis in monotone. The mastery of the medium, I think, is what really impresses the heck out of everybody who can look at this book, not only just in the way that they could paint, the way that they could write.
Their raw talent and ability, their ability to see what things could be and innovate within the framework is amazing. So you had an expectation that the public had of what art should look like in a book. And within that framework, the Limbourgs still managed to come up with new innovative ideas and really pushed the artistic boundary for their time period. So I'm pretty floored by what I see from them. As a person who does the same artwork that they did, I couldn't touch what they do. They just blow me away.
The artists that were commissioned to finish the book after the brothers' passing left some of the guide marks and sketches the Limborgs put together. The fact the book was not completed by the brothers gives us a chance to see how they laid out the illuminations. You can see the intricate pencil sketches. The iris is shown at the bottom of one page gives you a glimpse into the beautiful design they put together. What they accomplished in their short lives was amazing. It shows us that going through a pandemic, or in their case the plague, can affect your output, not only productivity, but creativity. The three brothers from Nijmegen left the world a rich source of inspiration and will continue to advance artistic passions and creativity for generations to come. In 2025, the world's most famous medieval manuscript will be exhibited. The book, entitled Riches Heures de Duc de Berry, will be shown at the Musée Condé Chantilly for the first time in years. Calendar pages will be presented unbound in their entirety, a rare opportunity. Located in Chantilly, France, this charming area will host a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Normally, the book is displayed with only a 2-page spread. If you're lucky enough to visit and see the book in person, you'll see the creativity, ingenuity, and timelessness of the Limbourg Brothers illuminations, calligraphy, and gold leaf, all on the original vellum. This is one exhibit not to miss. Please subscribe to this channel and like and share this documentary.